The wind howled through the cracked window of a tiny attic room, carrying the faint scent of rain and regret. Ellie Harper sat alone, her fingers tracing the worn edges of a photograph, her younger self, laughing with a boy whose smile could light up the darkest nights. The world outside was a blur of gray, but inside her chest, a storm raged louder. She hadn't spoken to anyone in weeks, not since the day she walked away from everything she loved. But tonight, something stirred, a whisper of courage, a flicker of hope. What if she could find him again? What if she could rewrite the ending she'd spent 1,000 days mourning? If you've ever lost someone who felt like home, stay with me, this story might just mend your heart. Ellie Harper was 32, but the weight of her choices made her feel a century older. She lived in a small coastal town called Solace Bay, where the ocean roared like it held all the world's secrets. Her attic apartment, cluttered with half-finished paintings and stacks of unopened letters, was her fortress of solitude. 3 years ago, she'd been a rising artist in the city, her canvases vibrant with dreams, her heart tethered to Finn, a musician with eyes like the summer sky. They'd planned a life together, until the night she left without a word, convinced she was saving him from her own unraveling. It started with a diagnosis, her mother's cancer, sudden and merciless. Ellie had returned to Solace Bay to care for her, abandoning her art, her love, her life. Finn had begged to come with her, but Ellie, drowning in grief and fear, pushed him away. "You deserve better than this," she'd said, her voice breaking as she boarded the bus. She thought she was protecting him, but the silence that followed was a wound that never healed. Her mother passed 6 months later, and Ellie stayed in Solace Bay, trapped by guilt and the ghosts of what might have been. Now, she worked at the local diner, serving coffee to fishermen and tourists, her days blending into a monochrome blur. The only color in her life came from the photograph she kept hidden in her pocket, a snapshot of her and Finn at a music festival, his arm around her, both of them laughing under a sky painted with stars. She hadn't painted since her mother's death, hadn't sung, hadn't lived. But one rainy evening, as she wiped down the diner's counter, a stranger left behind a flyer for a music festival in town. The headliner? Finn Callahan. Her heart stopped. Finn, here, in Solace Bay. The boy she'd loved, now a man making waves in the music world. The flyer trembled in her hands, and for the first time in years, Ellie felt something other than numbness, a spark of possibility, sharp and terrifying. But could she face him? Could she face herself? The challenge loomed like a mountain, to confront the past she'd buried, to ask for forgiveness, to find a way back to the person she used to be. She tucked the flyer into her pocket, next to the photograph. And made a decision. She'd go to the festival. She'd see him. Even if it broke her all over again. The festival was a kaleidoscope of lights and sound, a pulse of life that Solace Bay hadn't seen in years. Ellie stood at the edge of the crowd, her heart pounding as Finn took the stage. He was different now, taller, leaner, his hair longer, his eyes carrying a weight she didn't recognize. But when he strummed his guitar and sang, his voice was the same, warm and raw, wrapping around her like a memory. The crowd swayed, lost in his music, but Ellie felt like he was singing to her alone, each note a thread pulling her back to the life she'd left behind. She didn't approach him that night. Fear held her back, whispering that he'd moved on, that he'd forgotten her, that she was nothing but a shadow of the girl he'd loved. Instead, she lingered in the crowd, letting his songs wash over her. One song, 1,000 Days, stopped her cold. It was about loss, about waiting, about a love that refused to fade. 1,000 days, and I still see your face in every corner of this empty space, he sang, and Ellie's eyes filled with tears. Was it about her? Or was she clinging to a hope that didn't exist? The next day, she returned to the festival, determined to find him. She wore her old denim jacket, the one she'd worn in the photograph, as if it could summon the courage she'd lost. The challenge was no longer just about seeing Finn, it was about forgiving herself for leaving, for believing she wasn't enough. She wandered the festival grounds, her heart a tangled knot of hope and dread, until she saw him near a vendor's tent, signing autographs. His smile was polite but distant, and when their eyes met, time seemed to freeze. "Ellie?" His voice was soft, disbelieving. She nodded, unable to speak, her throat tight with 1,000 unsaid words. Finn stepped closer, the crowd fading into a blur. "Why are you here?" he asked, not accusing, but searching, like he was trying to find the girl he'd known. She wanted to tell him everything, her grief, her guilt, her regret, but all she managed was, "I heard your song." His face softened, and for a moment, she saw the boy from the photograph, the one who'd promised her forever. They talked for hours, sitting on a bench overlooking the ocean. Finn told her about his music, his struggles, the emptiness he'd felt since she left. Ellie confessed her fears, her mother's illness, the way she'd thought leaving him was an act of love. "I thought I was saving you," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Finn reached for her hand, his touch warm and steady. "You broke us both," he said, not cruelly, but honestly. "But I never stopped loving you." The resolution wasn't immediate. Finn needed time, and Ellie needed to rebuild herself. But that night, they made a promise, to try again, not as the kids they'd been, but as the people they were now, scarred but stronger. Ellie returned to her attic. Picked up a paintbrush for the first time in years, and began to create, a canvas of blues and golds, a reflection of the ocean and the hope she'd rediscovered. Over the next few months, Ellie and Finn navigated their fragile reconnection. He stayed in Solace Bay, playing small gigs while they rebuilt trust. It wasn't easy. Ellie's guilt lingered, and Finn's fame brought new pressures, fans, managers, the pull of a life beyond the quiet town. The key challenge was learning to communicate, to be honest about their fears and dreams. Ellie started painting again, her work raw and honest, capturing the beauty and pain of her journey. Finn wrote songs inspired by their story, each one a step toward healing. One evening, Ellie invited Finn to her attic. She showed him her latest painting, a stormy sea with a single beam of light breaking through the clouds. "This is us," she said, her voice steady. "We've been through the dark, but we're finding our way." Finn pulled her close, and for the first time, Ellie felt whole, not because he completed her, but because she was finally becoming herself again. Their biggest test came when Finn was offered a tour across the country. Ellie feared history repeating, her leaving, him chasing a dream alone. But this time, they faced it together. Finn asked her to come with him, not to abandon her life, but to build a new one together. Ellie agreed, on one condition: she'd keep painting, keep telling her story through her art. They'd be partners, not shadows of each other. The tour was a whirlwind, but Ellie and Finn found solace in each other. Her paintings hung in small galleries along the way, each one a testament to their journey. Finn's music soared, his songs carrying the weight of their love and resilience. They weren't perfect, there were arguments, doubts, moments when the past threatened to pull them under. But they faced each challenge with honesty, choosing each other every day. One night, under a starlit sky in a city far from Solace Bay, Finn dedicated "1,000 Days" to Ellie in front of a cheering crowd. "This is for the girl who broke my heart and gave it back stronger," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. Ellie stood backstage, tears in her eyes, knowing they'd rewritten their ending. The photograph, now framed in their shared apartment, was no longer a relic of loss but a promise of what they'd built. Ellie and Finn's story isn't just about love, it's about the courage to face your mistakes, to fight for the life you want, to find light in the darkest moments. If you're carrying a regret, a loss, a dream you think is out of reach, let this be your reminder: it's never too late to start again. Take that first step, even if it's small, even if it's scary. The road to solace is long, but it's worth every moment. What's your first step going to be? Let's find out together, because your story is still being written.